wanted to ask you, there's been a lot of stuff on my timeline at least, sniping between current U.S. men's national team players and former U.S. men's national team players. And I'm used to this in basketball because we've got a big problem where we have this generational feud at all times where the young guys say the old guys couldn't play and they were all playing against plumbers, and the old guys say the young guys are soft and weak and all that stuff. And I'm wondering, has this always been a thing for U.S. soccer, or is this a new development?
I think the word you use is perfect, generational. I think the fact that everyone has an access to an individual that maybe the older generations didn't have, whether it's podcasts, whether it's Instagram, whether it's X, whatever it may be, they have immediate access to have an opinion, or in this case, a docuseries that I find very interesting that as a player, now I'm putting my former player hat on, going into a World Cup, I'm not completely sure I would have done this and given the access going into a World Cup where it is the biggest moment in U.S. men's soccer history, where you're given insight into maybe your vulnerability, the fact that now we have parents coming into this, and I'm glad you brought it up. It even happened in the NBA. Halliburton's father was involved, whether or not it was in the Eastern Conference Final, then the NBA Finals. Now we got Christian Pulisic's dad wanting to give his opinion. I don't care what generation you're from. Anytime when you're an adult and you bring your parents into a rock fight or a cat fight or however you want to describe this, that's never going to be in good sight. But the reality is this, it is more a generational thing than a soccer thing. But I find it very intriguing that all of a sudden going into a World Cup where you as a team have been lackluster, if I'm being polite, with your results over the last 24 months, and coming off a World Cup where you already had a family feud with Reina and Berhalters and their family. I just find this to be really, really immature and missing the boat with timing of everything, especially 9 months before World Cup is in your backyard.
Taylor, am I wrong for saying that this is their identity, it would seem? Because this is a team that for the longest time, you were part of it, you knew the U.S. men's national team soccer identity. We'd try to get you with our athleticism. We'd counterattack, but you could always count on dogs, guys that would not just resign themselves to a talent disparity. And now it's just, let me get my dad involved in this. Let me fight for playing time politically and not on the pitch. And it's very confusing to me that you could always at least count on an American edge. Where are we in the international landscape where the U.S. still thinks that they've arrived to a point that they shouldn't have this edge?
It's amazing, buddy, the way you just put that, because the reality is this, first off, let's make this abundantly clear. The question of Christian Pulisic and his commitment to the national team was completely off base. He's always been committed, and he still will be committed. That's not what we're talking about here. But that's what got Christian Pulisic and his family upset. He could have nipped it in the bud, immediately releasing a statement of why he's not playing in the Gold Cup. And that is what U.S. soccer expected. Then it doesn't happen. You just hit the nail on the head. They created this own identity. It's nobody on the outside's fault that they are reacting and doing their job at the same time of giving their opinion of the situation that's going on. But the reality is this, and you hit the nail on the head again, Mike, is that the identity of this team is no longer, we're going to outwork you, we're going to have a dog in this fight, we're going to roll up our sleeves and do whatever we can to beat you. Now we're questioning whether or not you have that. And in 2014 World Cup, in the United States tied Portugal, should have won. They barely lost to Belgium, even though Tim Howard made 15, 16 saves, most saves ever. The question then, which is about 11 years ago, is how can the United States men compete with the top 10 countries in the world? But over the last 2 years, this generation lost a Copa America, couldn't advance in the group stage in their backyard. They lost to Canada in back-to-back games. They've lost to Panama in 3 straight games and not gotten a result, all in their backyard, all going into the World Cup. And you have the audacity to complain about criticism. Imagine if you were from Argentina or England or Brazil or Germany the amount of pressure that would be on you. That's where you lose me with this, Mike. And so now we're having a conversation. I got to do the Le Batard Show and talking about, are the players committed to going into a World Cup in their backyard in the biggest moment of their lives? And we're talking about a docuseries where the analysts outside are being called evil. Mike, they have completely lost the plot to me, and they've created this on their own. But to think that they're the first generation to ever be criticized, you can miss me with that. That's never been the case. It's just now everybody's got a podcast. Everybody's got a voice, so you hear it more. But it's getting to a point where it's ridiculous, and we're really talking about baby games here.
So there are some examples where all this drama, this soap opera element, really just take a chainsaw to a team's chances in the World Cup. We saw it with Spain. We've seen it with France before, where the soap opera gets to be too much. But we've also seen these galvanized host nations. South Korea went on an incredible run with a late managerial change. Russia, there was other stuff going on there, maybe some performance enhancers. Well, not maybe, but they were able to get it together as a host nation. Is the fact that, I know this is a shared World Cup, but is that enough to galvanize this team? Because right now we don't have much proof that they can just rally together under a banner and get all on the same page and put their egos aside. If there's ever an opportunity to do that, it's when you're the host nation.
Yes, the answer to that question is yes. And there is still a part of me that believes that 9-10 months from now, when the United States gets out of their group, they win a knockout round game, they maybe win a second one, all of us are going to look back at this and say, this is what galvanized the group together. There's always that possibility. You can't fret about yesterday and not really worry about tomorrow. You got to take care of today. And the reality is Christian Pulisic's coming off a weekend where he just scored a goal for Milan, and he looks like he's in good form. He's coming off the two best professional seasons of his career. Absolutely, this can galvanize the group. But if you're going to ask me if I'm confident about that, that's where I don't know. It's August 19th, 2025. In this moment, the fact that we're talking about a docuseries going into a World Cup, I don't fully believe in that. However, as a player, I will tell you this, that group can come together in spite of what they believe everyone on the outside is saying and what everyone on the outside is rooting for. And they can believe in that, and they can use that as motivation, and they can absolutely have the World Cup of their dreams. And then after that, look at all of us on the outside and say, I told you so. But that's what they have to do now because they brought more attention to them for negative reasons than they needed to. Mike, now they've got actually more pressure on them, which is kind of hard to believe because this is going to be the biggest moment in the men's national team program in the history. And I can't believe we're saying they've got more pressure on them now than they did about 2 months ago.
Taylor, moving back to MLS talk, Messi is leading the league with 19 goals in 19 matches. How much of that is he's just awesome, and how much of that is the competition still isn't quite up to snuff?
It's Messi being awesome. The fact that Messi goes to World Cup qualifiers at the age of 38 and contributes on the same level that he did 10 years ago, that will tell you that he's the unicorn. He is what he is, and this is what Messi is. Now, Father Time is knocking on the door. There's a few more nagging injuries that pop up here and there that didn't pop up 10 years ago. But for a player to come to Major League Soccer like Lionel Messi has done, and now Rodrigo de Paul, who is the defensive midfielder, the bodyguard of Messi for Argentina's World Cup team coming up in 8 months, for them to go to CONMEBOL in South America World Cup qualifying and still contribute at a high level, that tells you the level of Major League Soccer has risen, but also those players are just special. Messi is operating at a completely different level, and I can't believe we're still talking about him at the age of 38 because you can see declines in other players around the world when they hit this age. Messi's assist this past weekend, there's about 2 players in the history of the game that even saw that, let alone being able to pull that off, and Lionel Messi's one of them.
Taylor, best guess, Messi will lead Miami to an MLS Cup title, and will Messi be back next season for the debut in the new stadium?
I think Messi's will 100% open up the stadium for Inter Miami and Major League Soccer. I don't know if that's even really a debate right now. I think they're crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and getting that together. That's also why they're making signings like Rodrigo de Paul and other signings that are going to come. Winning MLS Cup is so tricky because they're one-off games and they're knockout round games, very similar to what we do in the NFL, where it's just a one-off game. And so there is this random optimizer, for lack of a better way, that if Miami's on the road and the goalkeeper for the other team stands on their head, FC Cincinnati beat Miami this year 3-0. So there is that one-off. But if everyone's fully fit come playoff time, the answer to your question is Lionel Messi and Inter Miami will be the front runners to win MLS Cup. But it's a big if everyone's going to be healthy.
Couple marquee signings into MLS recently. Sonny has got the hottest selling jersey in the world for LAFC, and Mueller's now at Vancouver. That's an interesting signing. More questions about their form and the stage that they're at in their careers than Messi had, where Messi was still very much recognized as the best player in the world. Sonny probably has more good football left in his tank than Mueller, but what is the early feedback from them being around these clubs?
Heung-Min Son has been brilliant, and for those of you watching the show, he has asked everyone in the United States to call him Sonny, so Mike, rightfully so, calling him Sonny. Good on you. It's a first for Major League Soccer to have the star from South Korea come to Major League Soccer. So he's brought eyeballs to Apple TV. He's brought eyeballs that maybe wouldn't have paid a lot of attention to Major League Soccer. So the off-the-field part of that, he's a home run. On the field, I think he's going to be better than people think. Now, he doesn't have the name of Lionel Messi or David Beckham or Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but it's very similar to Robbie Keane. And historically in Major League Soccer, Robbie Keane's one of the best winners in Major League Soccer history. He also made a move to Major League Soccer and still contributed at the international level. That's exactly what Sonny's going to do. I think LAFC really hit a home run with this. Thomas Mueller, I'm on the record and I'll be on the record. I don't know how to evaluate the signing. I love the fact that he's in Major League Soccer, but he did a 180 with 3 or 4 teams, Mike, in discussing contracts and where he wanted to play, how he wanted to play, what positions, to all of a sudden being playing in Canada for Vancouver. Now, he believes in the next 6 months, Vancouver's got the best shot to win the Western Conference and be an MLS Cup, but he's also got an option to get out of that contract. Now, what we don't know publicly, is it 100% a player option, or is it both Vancouver and his? Because I find that interesting. Is he coming here to test it, to see it, and then move on? He's there to win a trophy. Listen, he's won everywhere he's been in his life, whether it's with Germany or with Bayern Munich. But that's a difficult one to assess because I don't know how much is left in the tank. But I think Vancouver's a good enough team that they can help him acclimate himself, get him there, get him ready for the playoffs. And that's usually where the cream rises to the top.